Welcome everyone to the world of utilitarianism. I am Afan Fahim Khan from BRAC University, and this is an infographics video for the final project of our HUM 103 course. Utilitarianism was a theory developed back in the Enlightenment period in the 18th to 19th century, where people started to use logic and reason to find morality and ethics. It argues that anything that provides the highest number of pleasure and the least amount of pain is ethical and moral. It mottos the maximization of pleasure, the minimization of pain for the maximum amount of people. Now we are going to talk about the dimensions of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism can be divided into two dimensions. First, on the basis of the nature of pleasure, and the other one on the basis of decision-making approach. The first dimension can be further divided into two parts, which is quantitative utilitarianism or gross utilitarianism, and the other one is qualitative or refined utilitarianism. The second dimension can also be divided into two parts. One is act utilitarianism and the other is rule utilitarianism. To begin with, let us introduce with the founders of utilitarianism. Jeremy Bentham, who was a British philosopher, introduced the quantitative measures of utilitarianism, and John Stuart Mill, who was inspired by Jeremy Bentham, later developed the qualitative measures of utilitarianism. In relation, John Stuart Mill was the son of renowned economist and philosopher James Mill, who was a colleague and friend of Jeremy Bentham. Now let us dive into one of the branches of utilitarianism, which is quantitative utilitarianism. Quantitative utilitarianism is a branch of utilitarianism that focuses on maximizing overall happiness by quantifying pleasures and pains. Let us clear things out with a popular example, the trolley problem. Suppose there is a train heading towards 5 people who are tied to the track. You can pull a lever to save them, but there is a catch. If you divert the train, your loved one who is tied to the diverted track will be killed. There is no third option. What will you do? According to quantitative utilitarianists, you must save those 5 people because killing them would cause more pain than saving your loved ones. The hedonic calculus. The hedonic calculus is a method proposed by Jeremy Bentham, the founder of utilitarianism, to measure and compare the amount of pleasure or pain that different actions might produce. The idea is to use this criteria to calculate which action leads to the greatest overall happiness. The 7 factors of the hedonic calculus: intensity, how strong is the pleasure or pain; duration, how long will it last; certainty, how likely is it to occur; propinquity, how soon will it occur; fecundity, will it lead to more pleasures; purity, will it be followed by pain or is it free from pain; extent, how many people will be affected.
Now, I am going to briefly introduce you to qualitative utilitarianism, a concept developed by the philosopher John Stuart Mill. While traditional utilitarianism focuses on maximizing the amount of happiness, Mill took it a step further. He argued that not all happiness is equal. Some types of happiness are more meaningful and valuable. He believed that intellectual, moral, and creative pleasures are of higher quality than simple physical or short term pleasures. We can categorize them into higher class pleasures and lower class pleasures. Higher class pleasures involve mind and souls, such as education, music, moral development. Lower class pleasures are more physical and temporary, like eating, resting. Let's see how this idea works. Mill's approach focuses on 3 things: the quality of happiness, not just how much of it there is; higher pleasures like learning, creating, and helping others; and long term well being rather than short term comfort where quality impacts deeply. This is applicable when quality of happiness matters more than quantity while making real life decisions. For example, think about public transportation. In the first scenario, a bus has no ramp. While it works for many, it excludes people with disabilities like Mr. Ahan in a wheelchair. In the second scenario, the bus includes a ramp. This small change bring greater inclusion and dignity, improving the quality of happiness for everyone. Mill would say this second option is better moral choice. Another example is how children spend their time. On this, on one side, kids play on phones or computers. This gives short-term fun, but not much lasting value. On the other side, kids engage in creative activities like music or art, which build their minds and bring long-term joy. Mill would say the second option provides higher happiness. To sum it up, Mill's idea here is his famous quote: "It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied." This means it's better to live a thoughtful, challenging life as a human than a simple, easy one without growth. In conclusion, qualitative utilitarianism reminds us to choose actions that bring not just more happiness but better happiness and provide long term benefit.
Rule and act utilitarianism. The distinction between act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism wasn't something clearly made by the original thinkers like Jeremy Bentham or John Stuart Mill, but their ideas laid the foundation of these two interpretations. Bentham believed that instead of sticking to fixed rules or traditions, we should judge every action by its actual consequences. If something leads to more good than harm, then it's the right thing to do, even if it feels a bit unusual or goes against what we would normally think is right. Act utilitarianism, the one we are focusing on today, looks at each individual situation and decides what action would bring the most benefit right then and there. Rather than following a general rule, it encourages us to make decisions based on what would actually maximize happiness or minimize harm in the moment, not based on what usually works or seems right most of the time. Let me give you a couple of examples to help make this clearer. First example, the hospital case. Let's say a doctor only has one dose of life saving medicine. Two patients need it. One is a 90-year-old man who is not likely to recover, and the other is a 20-year-old woman with a good chance of surviving and living a full life. An act utilitarian would say the doctor should give the medicine to the person who would bring more overall benefit by surviving. In this case, the younger woman. It's not about playing favorites, but about maximizing the total good outcome. Second example, stealing to survive. Imagine a group of men in a famine who are starving and have no money. The only way they can survive is by stealing a loaf of bread from a local shopkeeper. Normally, we would say stealing is wrong, but from an act utilitarian perspective, the action should be judged by its consequences. In this case, the temporary harm to the shopkeeper is outweighed by the life saved, so stealing the bread would be considered the right thing to do because it leads to the greater good.
Now, moving on from act utilitarianism, we now turn our attention to rule utilitarianism, a moral philosophy that focuses on following rules which, when applied consistently, lead to the greatest long term happiness for the most people. It's an approach that emphasizes the bigger picture, guiding actions not by the immediate consequences, but by whether they uphold principles that promote overall well being in the long run. The thought process of a rule utilitarian will follow something like this. Does the action I'm about to do, if done by everyone else in a similar situation, will result in the greatest overall happiness? This way of thinking comes from the idea that a rule utilitarian doesn't just look at how one action turns out, they consider the long term effect if such a rule were universally followed. Let's look at an example, see how this thought process works in action. Imagine a person made a promise to her dying friend that after he passes away, she would use the inherited money to create something to honor his memory, like a statue or a monument. Deep down, she might feel it's an impractical use of the money, perhaps even a waste, but she cannot bring herself to question it. It was his final wish after all. And in that, now, this woman is a good person, let's assume that for now, and believes in bringing happiness to the greatest number of people, a classic utilitarian mindset. As her friend passed away, she thought to herself about using the money to help the unfortunate will be a benefit to a lot of people, and breaking the promise for that seemed justified for the greater good. But a rural utilitarian would never agree with that. Why? Because a rural utilitarian understands the future consequences of breaking such a rule. If she breaks this promise, others may stop trusting her word and consequently the people around her. Imagine a society where broken promises are common. The whole idea of a promise would lose its meaning. Nobody will believe in promises anymore. So, to protect the value of promises, a rural utilitarian would always choose to keep them every single time, no matter the specific situation. And this is the essence of rural utilitarianism. It's not about asking what outcome a single action might produce in a single moment, but rather asking what would happen if everyone followed the same guiding rule. Would the society be better off? Would it increase trust, fairness, or happiness on a larger scale? If the answer is yes, then the rule has moral weight. Rule utilitarianism pushes us to think beyond the immediate and consider the broader, long term effects of the principles we choose to live by. It is this emphasis on sustainable, rule based integrity that makes it a compelling guide for ethical decision making.
Now let us see where the different types of utilitarianism are implemented. Suppose a country has low population but abundance of resources. In that case, qualitative utilitarianism can be applied where the government can allocate more resources for each of the citizens. Conversely, if a population dense country is lacking in resources, the government has to apply quantitative utilitarianism, where the government needs to reduce and streamline the resource allocation for each citizen. Let us see an example. Bangladesh is a densely populated country where resources are also limited. Government's main priority is to meet the basic needs of the people. This includes ensuring access to food, clean water, basic healthcare, and primary education. In such countries, the focus is more on survival and managing the large population with the available resources. Challenges like poverty, unemployment, and inadequate infrastructure are often at the forefront of national planning. On the other hand, Switzerland presents a contrasting scenario. It is one of the best places to live in the world due to its low population and an abundance of resource. The government here can afford to invest more in the advanced healthcare, quality education, environmental sustainability, and overall citizen well-being. With fewer basic needs to worry about, Switzerland can focus on enhancing the standard of living, supporting innovation, and maintaining a high level of public services. As such, the government in Bangladesh prioritizes quantity, meeting the needs of the many, while Switzerland focuses on quality, improving the lives of the citizen through luxury, security, and opportunity. This comparison highlights how the priorities of a government often depends on the unique needs and circumstances of the country. Now, act utilitarianism justifies an action based on if it would lead to highest level of happiness, even if the actions are considered morally wrong, whereas rule utilitarianism tells us that there are rules everyone should follow. Despite the consequences, it would lead to most happiness for everyone. Let us see an example scenario. If there is a famine in a society, people might be inclined to steal. Act utilitarianism would justify this action as it would lead to most happiness for their family. But rule utilitarianism opposes this, as even if it leads to short-term satisfaction, if everyone starts stealing, it would lead to chaos in the society, and everyone would face a crisis.
Hello everyone, I'm Afad Fahim Khan, and I made the intro, the history, and the quantitative part of utilitarianism in this video. Hope you all liked it. Thank you.
Hello, I am Ashik Tanzim. I had the opportunity to present the section on qualitative utilitarianism in this video. I hope it helped clarify the concept and added value to your understanding. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone. I'm Rubayat Hosnarayan and I have instructed the Act Utilitarianism part of the video. Hope you liked it. Thank you again.
Hi everyone, my name is Shadid Khan and I helped making the rule utilitarianism part of this video. Thank you all.
Hello everyone, I am Nabil Wasit and I made the comparisons between utilitarianisms in this video.